I've kind of gone past the point of no return a little bit with the car here. Let's take a look and see what's going on. I have basically chopped off the back support, which is this guy here. You can see it here. And I have cut off the frame rail on the back end of the wagon. I've also taken the liberty of cutting out this guy here. This side you can see it's a little bit more bent than the other side. Probably in an accident of some kind. The whole idea here is that this will go on here, tie the two pieces together so I can get rid of this guy here. And the other part of it is I want to use the, slide this over, I want to use the bumper mounts from the Crown Victoria, which as you can see, well, maybe a little bit bent, but they fit inside of here, whereas in here, it's not so good. So the whole idea would be to take this guy here and replace this. So hopefully there's enough slots and movement where it fits into the bumper here that'll position it in the correct location. So what I'm basically doing now is, and you can kind of see, I think there's been a previous repair here. Not only is it bent, but I wonder if somebody bent it to try and put this trailer hitch on. They may have bent it just because it was a certain size. So the goal now is to hopefully make a cut right about here, splice on the remainder of the chassis using, of course, get a rough idea here, the template, getting the right locations so that this guy and the correct distance back here. It's about, I think it's quite 2 inches out further for the wagon than on the sedan. But I cut the spot welds from the sedan, and I'm going to cut these rails off as well. So, like I say, I want to say it's kind of at the point of no return, but as soon as I cut this, here it is. So I've got to get motivated to work on this guy here. My wife really wants a spot back in the garage here. We've had weather that's been fantastic. It's sunny, it's bright, it's almost too bright. Gas tank still has some fuel in it, so I pushed it off to the side while I did the choppy with the little DeWalt cutter here. So the garage is a total disaster right now. I've just kind of shifted everything over right now while I work on this. So the goal today, not knock over the fuel tank, the goal today is to weld this guy onto here. So you see, you have to clean up the welds from the previous repair job, cut this one off, weld it into place, and then I'll decide whether I cut off the trailer hitch or not. I think I'd rather leave it attached until it's actually welded on. Keep the spacing between the two sides from here to here. Keep that spacing correct. Keep it lined up until it gets welded in place. And also, of course, clean this up because it's a little on the corroded side. So let me go back into the back of the wagon here. You can see it's chopped out and chopped out. I might actually think about taking this rear end right out and see if I can unload it and sell it. That way it makes it a little easier to maneuver this around. I need to get it down as low as possible so I can slide it out, because I need the clearance from here to here to slide it forward all the way out. So, and of course I'll have to cut some of these fuel lines like this guy here. I think that's the only thing that's really attached body to frame. So really corroded rubber, I can just chop it off. So that's it for now. We'll come back when we've accomplished a little bit more on the project. I've been off for working on this for a couple days. I got a little sick. Not impressed, but things happen. Started taking the wire wheel, flappy disc, and grinding disc here to the frame that I've cut off. You can see I just kind of knocked down the big scale and the rust. Haven't debated on cutting off or leaving on the trailer hitch. I leave it on just enough to support it while I work on this part here. You can see the amount of scale that's on there. And this guy right here goes right through. It's pretty weak, so I think I'm going to end up cutting out patch panel for there, a la fish plate, when I make the joint here. So the plan is, sorry about the glare in the sun, the plan is to butt these up against each other and then fish plate them in place. One on each side of the big side. I'm debating about the bottom and the top because there's an overlap, as you can see. Overlap there, and it's pretty ugly welds here. So I think the two sides will be just fine, but that hole is going to have to be repaired. I got some really grungy stuff in here, as you can see. So cleaning all that up, there's number 2 here. I think I ground off one of the other numbers here. There's a number 4. What I've done here is I've cut and numbered some templates. So you can see number 2 here. I plan on lining it up here. And you can see how it kind of mates up with each side. So each one of these cut marks on the side, each one of them has a template. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Going around and around here. And then the plan will be to find a datum to start with, and then, like so, mark the lines. It doesn't quite line up because it's in the wrong hole, but if they're in the right height, I can line this up. You can see I can just make a mark and cut it on both sides, and then leaving all of this in one piece, so the trailer hitch will help to hold it in place while I line it up, tack it in place, square it up, and lots of scale here. I square it all up, weld it, fish plate it, and I am going to have to relocate these guys here. The exhaust brackets on both sides. It's just a matter of really drilling out holes. The bumpers are going to be the worst ones, or the most important ones, to get the correct depth for the bumper going in and out so it doesn't go out too far. I think there's a little bit of adjustment in that regard that I can make it happen. You can see it here. Don't mind the air conditioning refill. The hole that's there, it's a little oblong, so I am going to have to adjust it, but that's going to be for the bumper once it gets put on. But first things first will be frame rails. You can see this one here again as well. I can always slot these holes if I needed to, and do some measurements once everything's put back together. So while looking at this frame rail and the potential patch job I was going to have to do, Tiffany came over and told me something I should maybe consider. Not a great idea maybe to be butt welding the two frames together, fish plated around the side here. So instead of cutting a new patch panel along here because it's kind of graunchy, why don't I do something like this? Basically what I've done is kind of taken that piece right out, top and bottom, and the goal will be, when I do the sedan chassis, I'll do the exact same cuts, the same shape, but in the opposite, so they'll interlock like jigsaw puzzle pieces. Although right about here, it's a little bit wider than the sedan, so instead of cutting inside like so. I'm going to cut through here to give it as much width as possible. I'll go over here and I'll give you a gander at the two pieces I have cut off. So this is the top piece here. I'm going to use it as a guide right here. So, as you can see, pretty close shape. Grinder, welder, and sawzall necessary to make it fit at the top and the bottom. You can see how crunchy this is. So, I don't have a problem replacing, since this one here is much cleaner, much nicer looking. I hope you can see this in the dark here. I don't have the light on, so you get an idea on this side here just how much cleaner it is. The weld is much cleaner. That could be previous damage that's been booger welded together. Not that I'm any better, but we're going to go from here. So I got one side cut. Watch over the chair. The one side measured and cut, going through cutoff discs. I'll do the exact same thing here. I'll measure it, cut it, at least get one half done tonight. And then I start measuring and drawing lines for the second half, the sedan. Don't mind the bad welds, but today I cut some cardboard templates. They're numbered so they will just line up. Line up with the frame there. They're numbered here, so I'll know where to line it up. Here, like this here. And a spot to cut the frame so that we can match up these cuts, which aren't of course perfectly parallel or perfectly straight, but we're going to line them up to the frame, make the marks, make the cuts, and use this template here to make sure that it's in line with the hump. The reason why I cut off that little black brace is these are the shock mounts from the wagon. As you can see, it doesn't fit because I want to use these shock mounts rather than those, which are completely rusty. And luckily able to twist them out and hammer them out, but they are, like, these are going to be cut off if they ever get reused. So for today, that's it. We'll come back to it when it warms up and lightens up again. Motor has been pulled. Instead of sliding the frame out the back, or out the side, or out the front, just went with a cutter and zipped it there. I'd already cut it here, so the frame really is not much good to anybody. The rear end probably, it's an 8.8. Freeway gears, like 220 something. Got a buyer coming for this in about 45 minutes. Wants the front suspension. The wheels and tires are staying. It's just so they can roll it on his chassis. He's probably going to scrap the frame. The garage has like exploded. Motor and transmission. Thanks to Hagen for letting me use his engine hoist. Fought it last night. Everything has just seemed to be clinging on. It's just when you think you've got the last item disconnected. 2 ground cables and a block heater cable. For the last 2 items ended up having to cut. Here it was the same thing. It was fuel line, fuel return line, and brake line, which kept it from rolling all the way. Garage being a disaster. Got to be cleaned up today so I can get at least parking 1 car inside, because as you can see, it's a bit of a winter wonderland here in Calgary. So this is gone. I'm going to roll it on out. I'll have to move the car here and you can back it up on the trailer. That frees up a lot of room. I'm going to clean up all this mess underneath. Thank goodness for the leaves. Mother Nature's absorball, I guess. She puked a bunch of ATF, of course, underneath. Here I left the cooling system attached so I didn't have to worry about leaking that everywhere. Instead, I decided to leak transmission fluid, power steering fluid, and whatever this came from. I have no idea. So I got this ready to go. Once I get this guy welded up, it's a little out of alignment right now. It's dropped down because I needed to move a bunch of stuff around in here. I had to steal a come along. So, and this, of course, ripped immediately. 2 pair of gloves. Fingers are full of fluid. Imagine that. But this disaster has got to be cleaned up today. So, start with getting rid of this guy, getting this moved on, and cleaning out what's underneath there. Some scrap. You can see underneath. You got drive shaft, which I also forgot to pull out the other end when I pulled the motor out. You got the old remnants of the exhaust system, piles of leaves. Thank goodness they compost. And I can get rid of all of that stuff. So I say the next project will be getting this sold, getting this cleaned up, and then we'll go to the welding. Got some more frame rail repairs here before I can even think about rolling this out. But it's that close, so we'll keep in touch on this guy here. So we've had some unseasonable weather. Well, maybe not unseasonable for January. However, a couple of days of minus 30 plus. Fahrenheit, Celsius, doesn't matter. Most of the frame is gone on the wagon. The front half, 3/4 if you will, gone. Sawzalled it off here. And back here, of course, I'm keeping that part. I'm going to sell the rear end off. 226 rear gear, station wagon brakes, a little bit larger. Hit me up if you're interested. Make some cuts on the frame here. This is the frame from the wagon that I'm keeping. Just gave it a good cleaning and a little bit of a spray paint, trim clad rust paint. Not completely finished, but it's close enough for what I needed to do. Made the decision to cut off the trailer hitch. It will become scrap metal. And instead of cutting the welds, I just cut her off square on both sides, leaving it on. It's a lot of work to cut through the welds, and I figured underneath the car, no one's going to see it. So, next point, or next part of the project here, let the paint dry, maybe a couple of runs, but that doesn't matter. I didn't paint this in here until I cut it, fit it, measure it, so that it goes in here. So you can see some cuts in here. Once I get it matched up and welded in place, then I'll go over with the last of the paint. Here's some pieces that were cut out of the frame, and both frames. I'm going to end up using this piece is here to fish plate on the side of the frame. Well, I took some time off, do some other jobs around the house, some other projects. So today, back out on the frame splice job. It's all welded up, ground down a little bit, and gave it one quick coat of paint. You can see here we did the fish plate with rounded corners around here. The welding, it's my welding, right? But the fish plates being rounded, I picked it off a YouTuber who was doing it with I think it was a Ford Ranger. So he recommended doing the fish plate with rounded corners so it doesn't do this flexi at the joint. Makes it a little bit stronger. Again, welds maybe not the greatest, but welded quite a bit. And here, this is the level on the back frame rail. You can see where we're at. And that's where we're on the rear frame. So I'm happy with that. So another coat of paint, clean up the garage, and I think we'll then work on getting that guy ready to receive the chassis. I'm going to use this time to kind of test fit. These are the bumper brackets from the sedan. These are the ones from the wagon. So as you can see, they match up to the holes. Since this brace here was added on from the sedan to the wagon. Basically replaced the trailer hitch, which was giving it support. So there's a little bit of play to it. And that mounts to the bumper bracket, which is this guy here. And yeah, there's not a whole lot left, which is supposed to bolt up to here. And it feels like cast aluminum or some kind of really inexpensive aluminum. Pause with me for a second here. Bear with me for a second. So you can kind of see how it's supposed to line up on the bracket, and then these cutouts are for the bolt heads and covered in snow, but they have the same idea over here where there's like these little speed nut holders. To me, it seems very weak to be putting between the two. So this guy here, well, there's no way I can reuse it, that's for sure. So what I'm probably going to do with this guy here, garbage. There's no saving it. I'm not even going to save it to make a pattern with, because it won't be difficult to put a pattern of some kind in here to make something that matches up. Comparing it to the wagon, you can see the bolt holes, and the bolt goes through. Now if you were to kind of, let's just say, roughly line these up in the same distance, and you can see that the hole kind of lines up to where this would go in this direction here inside the frame. So I think that the ones from the sedan are going to be acceptable to use, just a matter of mounting the bracket of some kind to the bumper so it'll attach to these guys here. Looks a little bit crooked, but there's a lot of play in here, so it's loose right now. So it's not necessarily going to be an issue. I would like a way to get the bumper to suck into the car a little bit, kind of not so protrusion on the back end. So I think that's it for today, except I do have some welding to finish on the drinker side exhaust on the underneath part. I hate welding on my back. I got a cinder in my ear today, and the other day I got 3 or 4 in my hair, so welding upside down, no bueno. I think I'll wait till that is done. Slid underneath the car, and away we go. I do think that the next step of the project will be, besides pulling out the rear end, you can see I cut the frame to take the rear off and take the front off, is this guy right here. The wagon gas tank basically fits around that. So one of two things is use the gas tank from the wagon and somehow adapt an electric fuel pump, or use a sedan pump and slice this apart and extend this flat piece all the way up and then out, and then eliminate this drop down. So decisions. The other way I could do is a wagon fuel pump with a remote electric fuel pump, say this kind of area right here. Oh yeah, don't look at that too closely. So there's a fuel line here, and you get the idea. We could put an electric fuel pump in there somehow. So that is the next decision. Really, I should be taking this 8.8 rear end out. 226 freeway gears. I think I've mentioned that in the past. It doesn't really help the fuel economy on this thing. The weight of this guy here, the fact that it's like a brick, not built for fuel economy. So for today, that's it. I'm going to clean this out here. All the stuff, there's some extra parts hiding underneath there. Clear that out of there. And then this guy is going home. Front end's going to have to be lifted up a little bit more to jack it up. That way I can slide the hump underneath. The wheels will be gone. I'll drop it down onto these skates here and slide it underneath. That I want to get done this weekend. Today is Friday. I got till Sunday. I want to get this out by Sunday. Wish me luck.